Hello, everyone watching on TTG's Facebook page. Good afternoon. It's senior reporter Tom Parry here, and welcome to the first in our series of TTG face-to-face interviews, where we speak to travel industry leaders about how the coronavirus crisis is affecting their business and how they're adapting to the new challenges that we face in this very much a brave new world. This afternoon, I'm joined by the UK and Ireland MD for MSC Cruises, Antonio Paradiso. Antonio, thank you very much for joining me.
Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me.
And you're also on the ITT board for shipping, aren't you? So a fantastic candidate and a fantastic interviewee to have this afternoon.
Indeed, I am.
Thank you very much. Well, of course, as a proud Italian and as a very proud Italian company, MSC has had its challenges, especially with the cruise industry as a whole, really. I thought we might begin by you sort of talking us through how both professionally and very much personally the last few months have been for you, Antonio.
Well, they've definitely been really, really intense. So we have had different stages of this crisis. So we started back in January, so late January, where basically we had two of our ships, right at the end of the Asian cruise season. So you remember perfectly, the virus first broke out, in China. So we had to change and adapt our itinerary straight away by basically skipping course, to China. But then, step by step, we had the virus, affecting other parts of the world. The vast majority of our ships, of course, were either in South America, Caribbean, or the Mediterranean. So in the first phase, we felt rather safe by keeping the ships there because, again, we had pretty much, no news about the virus yet. But then suddenly the virus started to hit Italy first. That became also personal because, as you know, my family lives in Italy. So let's say I've been on this roller coaster of emotions since, early January. And that, posed the first threat to our operations because after Italy, we had Spain falling. Mm-hmm. And basically, we had customers on board of our ships and things were pretty much changing by the minute. So we had to readjust our itineraries in due course. So, and basically, always put the safety and security of our people first. We were one of the first cruise lines to start the screening straight away. So we were measuring people temperatures with the thermal cameras. We adopted the questionnaires. So back then, we were still trying to block or identify people who basically were coming from China or from northern Italy, so the first few affected areas. But then we suddenly, got to a stage where pretty much, ports were locking down, the countries were closing their borders. So where basically we decided that it was about time we stopped the operations. So what happened afterwards, we had thousands and thousands of customers basically all over the world. So our priority was to repatriate those passengers. So getting those passengers back, in my case, to the UK and Ireland. So it was, again, a race against time to find charter flights. So I was working with the British government, with the British embassies abroad. And actually, I have to say, it's been a great cooperation. We've also been applauded by the British embassies abroad, especially the one in France and Italy, for our support and cooperation. So basically, our top priority was to get people back home. And so we spent between 2 and 3 weeks in just, repatriating people. Once the operation was over, of course, we then had to focus on our crew members. Because we had thousands and thousands of crew members on board, our ships in different parts of the world, so South America, Caribbean, Dubai, Mediterranean. So that's where we had to work with each and every government to repatriate the crew members. And there have been many obstacles there as well, because some countries, of course, refuse their own people. So they've been very, very strict on repatriating, people to their countries. But all in all, it's been a pretty successful operation. So we have repatriated probably about 85–90% of our crew members. And for those who could not go back home, they're currently on our ships. And of course, given the difficult circumstances, we have made the ship available to them so that they can relax and enjoy their time on board the ships. Of course, free Wi-Fi and any sort of support, to keep them in contact with their families. And not long ago, we decided to stop the operations until the 29th of May. But I'm pretty confident that that's going to be reviewed in the coming weeks, because as you can imagine, this is a very fluid situation. So nobody has a crystal ball or can predict the future at this stage. So, we are taking it step by step, of course, trying to preserve people's holidays and agents' businesses and our business as well for as long as possible, because as you can imagine, the travel industry has been severely hit and damaged, by the coronavirus itself.
And the fact that you mentioned obviously the crew on board the ships as well, for the UK and Ireland team, then what's it been like, sort of transferring from the offices, like many businesses, to working from home, and how have you been sort of supporting agents? Have you set up sort of virtual call centres, or how have the sales team been operating?
So we basically left the office exactly 3 weeks ago. We were already working on a reduced capacity, so respecting all the protocols, so the social distancing. We also had a thermal camera at the entrance of the MSC offices, so that we could have had the opportunity to screen all of our employees and colleagues. So basically, we've been working at the office until the very last day. So when Boris Johnson announced the lockdown. And since then, now we're all working remotely from home. Of course, we can practically say that we live on, office Teams and Zoom. So, and what we are trying to do, of course, I have many of my colleagues who are still actively working, especially from the customer service department. Contact center is still working. Our lovely colleagues from the sales and marketing team and the pricing team. So the business itself hasn't stopped. So we are still trying to support, both the customers and the agents. Of course, it's been a really, really tough period for us. So things sometimes took a bit of time before we had the opportunity to put them in place. For the reasons I mentioned earlier, we had other priorities back then. We had to repatriate people. We had to look after our crew members. So that process, especially the future cruise credit vouchers process, took a bit of time. But again, we wanted to make sure that we took the right decision at the right time. And I think, given these difficult circumstances, we have made the right decisions. So we are proactively working with the agents, of course, to protect customers' bookings. I think you're aware that for all the cancelled cruises, MSC has given us a first option 125 future cruise credits. That basically customers can rebook their cruises later in the year or someday in 2021, and they also get this additional 25% credit.
Are you finding that most customers are opting to do that and have a cruise at a later date, or are actually thinking of cancelling? Or is there a sort of rough percentage? I don't know, sort of agents would know in terms of the take upon those.
Tom, it's still early days because we recently implemented the process. So we did the announcement first and we said, okay, this is what's going to happen. I can say so far from the feedback I've been collecting and from the first, numbers I've seen in the past few days, I could easily say that probably about 80 to 85% of the people are willing to go on holiday again at a later stage. And so far it's a smaller part of people who are willing to apply for a refund. But as a travel industry, we're in it together. So we have all been affected heavily by this situation. So our goal, of course, is to support and protect, the travel industry. And so we are definitely encouraging agents and customers, to give us a second chance, to give us the opportunity to showcase our beautiful, products, our beautiful experience, whether that be winter 2021 or summer 21, we shall find out. So far, I've seen that demand is mainly focused on summer 2021 for obvious reasons, and there are some bookings for December and January sailings.
Do you think with that in mind, Antonio, that was sort of the next point really, in terms of a lot of lines putting their cancellations and their suspension operations well into the summer now? Would you say that the 2020 season is perhaps a bit of a write-off, or should agents look ahead to 21 to focus their efforts?
I don't think it's a write-off yet. I think that probably June, July, even August sailings potentially could be affected. Again, it's a very fluid situation. So I don't know, in 3 weeks from now, eventually things will get better, and we could go back to our original plan. But I still believe that all those cruises and sailings in autumn and winter are relatively safe at the moment. And then Tom, it goes hand in hand with the regulations of each and every country. And, our business is also heavily tied, to the air industry. So we still need to fly people to other countries, to board ships, unless they are leaving, from Southampton. So there are so many factors affecting our, decision making. But I'm still rather optimistic and hope, that those sailings in autumn and I include September as well are still relatively safe. So we shall see basically, but as a matter of fact, I've seen more and more customers booking cruises for 2021, and that's really encouraging.
It is. It's a really heartening to hear, especially 85%, obviously anecdotal figures, but really, really encouraging. I was wondering, in terms of you were saying about the take up of obviously the vouchers, when it comes to the ones who haven't actually decided to cancel outright, what sort of would you say to agents whose customers are, obviously the cruise sector has come under a lot of scrutiny, and with the government with Boris Johnson standing up and saying, if you're of a certain age and certain medical disposition, do not cruise, which is probably unprecedented really. What would you say to agents' customers who would be wary and who might want to just say, no, let's just leave it there? How would you sort of give agents advice on how to win them back almost?
Well, we should all be fighting for each and every booking at the moment. Tom, every day we are hearing different things, okay? So let's be honest, nobody really knows how phase 2 is going to look like. So the second we will leave our homes and the lockdown is going to be relaxed, we don't really know what's going to happen. As a cruise industry, of course, we are working on new protocols because let's face reality. We will be entering a new world of cruising, where things will be slightly different from the old world. And I think the cruise industry was already pulling out all the stops, by putting the health and safety of their passengers first. So again, it goes without saying that loads of the lovely things that I read on news articles, etc., were already in place. So at MSC, we clean the ship 5 times a day. We screen our passengers. We question our passengers, so they need to fill out a questionnaire. And as a cruise industry, we have dealt with other threats in the past, like the norovirus or with other emergencies. So I believe we have a certain experience in handling these things. Of course, we need to understand what other measures we should be putting in place. If we think about the social distancing, this is something we should definitely take into account, how that social distancing on a ship is going to look like in the future. But
do you think that's a policy that could be put in place, do you think, post coronavirus?
Why not? I think at least in the first phase, there could be somehow we should be respecting social distancing. How that's going to look like, we don't know yet. But we will be working hand in hand with, with the local governments, with our friends from the cruise industry to understand exactly what needs to be done. And I can tell you that each and every cruise line out there is working hard and tirelessly in order to, again, safeguard and protect the customers. So we're all working and going in the same direction.
Yeah.
And again, technology will play a big role in this new world of cruising, and pretty much each and every cruise liner have invested a lot of money and effort in developing new technology. Again, we are all working together as a team, and that's really important.
It must be
my advice.
Oh, sorry,
just to go back to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
My advice to agents, of course, is to share the knowledge, share the experience, share the information. Sometimes I'm surprised by some of the things I'm reading on national newspapers, describing the cruise industry as, the worst public enemy.
That was my point, really. Actually, it must be so frustrating considering all the hard work and the effort. How frustrating is it that do you think
is because
a bad rap, really, at the moment?
Yes, because sorry if I say it, Tom, sometimes people, writing those articles have little or no knowledge at all about the cruise industry. Before we share this negativity, it will be worth, digging a little bit and asking for more and more information, because as an industry, we are really working our socks off, to keep ships as a safe environment. And, not many people out there know what's happening behind the scenes and the hard work of people. We've been working on 24/7 shifts, to get people back home, to safeguard people. And just as an answer to those articles, I'll give you an example. We have passengers on board MSC Magnifica. MSC Magnifica was on a work cruise, who have decided to stay on board the ship rather than going back to their countries, because they believe the ship is a much safer place than their own homes.
And they can actually get home themselves. They could fly home and get back, or
we gave them an option, but if people have decided, I'll pay for the work cruise, I feel much safer here.
Oh, wow.
And, these are positive stories that nobody's talking about.
Where were the passengers from? Which nationality were they?
From different countries. There are also some British on board. But that's a positive story, and we're trying to share some positivity out there. So that's why I always say that these scaremongering articles don't really support the industry.
Do you think it was a misstep of the government to specifically name and sort of pinpoint cruise so early on? Do you think that they should have just, because I suppose some in the industry have argued it was early on, it was the same as catching a flight or staying in a hotel in terms of how the virus was spreading and where it was spreading? Do you think they should have held back until actually they shouldn't have mentioned cruise specifically to the public?
Well, we have been one of the many industries that have been called out, by governments. I think it's got little to do with the government. It was more about, media stories surrounding, the whole, situation, because, the cruise industry has been heavily affected just as much as land-based holidays or airlines. That's why I say we're in this together as a travel industry. And I always ask myself, why this particular focus on cruises. It's true that we have moving assets, and our assets are rather big. They're rather large. They always catch the attention of the public. But if you think about social media, that's pretty much applicable to any industry out there. It could be pubs, it could be restaurants. Social distance. Everybody needs to do something about it. It's not just the cruise ships. I think we will all be a bit cautious by the time we get out of this lockdown. I don't think, the world is going to be exactly the same as we left there. So sometimes, I'm surprised by this particular attention, to the cruise industry, when at the end of the day, we are doing everything that we possibly can, to protect everyone, to protect all of our customers.
So
again, allow me to say, these repatriation flights don't come free of charge. This is cruise lines paying, again, to repatriate passengers or to repatriate crew members.
I suppose that's just a good customer service, isn't it, really, to sort of go the extra mile for them in that sense. But
Indeed.
I was going to say, in terms of how, as industry, we get those messages across then, is it up to lines to be, banging on the government's door in the UK and the US, as an organisation? How would you like to see the industry, right that wrong almost of having crews scapegoated, if you like? What sort of action do you think should be put in place?
Well, this is more down to our industry. So, we're all part of CLIA, and we are working with CLIA in order, to get a different message out there. Of course, we are also working hand in hand with the governments, to share our part of the story, our version of the story. But again,
are you actively speaking to government, sort of opening those channels now, Antonio, or with government?
Well, that will come later, at a later stage. But of course, I have to say, pretty much all the governments have been really, really supportive so far. And I, can recall the experience of the passengers' repatriations. There's not been a single government that's basically has caused us issues. We've been working together, hand in hand, in order, to bring people back home. And again, I think it's got little to do with government. Sometimes, there are some headlines out there, there's some articles that don't really help the situation. But I just hope, that we can see more and more, positive stories, and why not more accurate stories, which perfectly represents the situation that we've been dealing with since, late January. And again, we are a business that we're operating in so many countries around the world. We have customers of 170 different nationalities. So you can imagine how complicated, this jigsaw puzzle is or looks like. So we will need to understand in phase 2 and phase 3 exactly what needs to be done. But I feel rather, confident, because we are really working together as an industry. So I'm talking to my friends from other cruise lines, from the same industry, and we're all on the same page. We're all aligned. We know exactly what we need to do, and it will be our mission to share the knowledge and the information again in the coming weeks and months, because I think that cruising is still one of the best experiences possible in the world.
I think looking ahead then, sort of what impact will coronavirus have on MSC's forward launch schedule and itinerary planning? Do you think, obviously you're a Mediterranean specialist, do you think that, given obviously with Italy and Spain as they are now, are you worried that might take a while, that market to recover, or do you think that Brits might stay closer to home? Is there any sort of regions you think might be more popular when the recovery starts, perhaps?
Well, this goes hand in hand with the relaxation of the lockdowns, or the local, of course, measures taken by each and every country. So it goes without saying that Italy and Spain are in phase 2. So phase 1, it's over now. Step by step, they are relaxing, their measures. You may have seen that China is pretty much going back. Let's call it a normal life, but in brackets, because it's a normal new life. Let's call it so. So South America has been less impacted by, the coronavirus. So there will be, for sure, some regions which will be accessible rather sooner than later, and other countries where, we might need to wait a little bit longer before we can start, resuming our operations. And in terms of future projects, at the moment, I can only foresee eventually a delay, because, of course, some of the shipyards are closed for obvious reasons. We're not planning on changing our plans anytime soon. But as a matter of fact, this situation will inevitably cause some delays or differences in terms of time schedule. So this is what we're going to find out now in due course. As I said, it's such a fluid situation, that nobody really can predict the future in more than 2 weeks from now. So
no, that's so true, isn't it? I was just wondering in terms of pricing. I know that I think we had a question on Facebook in terms of, do you think that when the time is right to go, you think that lines will be releasing their fleets fully out into the oceans, or it'll be phasing, it'll be a few ships at a time? And then in terms of pricing for the trade, how do you sort of go about stimulating the market again? Is it a case of deals to get volume, or is it a case of keeping rates high to keep the value there? How would you sort of assess that?
Well, it's different from for every cruise line has its own strategy, of course. And then, if I had to guess today, if you're asking me today, I would say we would phase it, the whole thing. So I don't think tomorrow morning we will be resuming the operation for all of our 18 ships at the same time. You need to make sure you base the ships in the right region. So I assume there's going to be for a period of time, it's going to be a soft reopening, and then gradually you will get fully on track. So that's the way I feel things are going to happen in the next few months. In terms of prices, I just want to reassure agents and customers that we're not going to be taking advantage of the situation. So we're not planning on increasing prices for summer 21 just because we expect a demand there. Actually, we believe we will further review those prices in order to make sure that people have the possibility first to rebook their cruise through the future cruise credits, so the 125 FCC that we have given to them, and secondly because we generally want to restart our business in a healthy way. And if you check the prices on the UK website, especially in the next few weeks, you will actually see that there will be more and more initiatives, in order to stimulate that demand. And Tom, let's be honest, once all of this is over, we all deserve a break. We all deserve a holiday. And why not? We all deserve a cruise.
Mm.
Personally, I can't wait to go on a cruise ship again,
I was going to say, I can see your MSC model behind you there. I was going to say, you're
yes.
missing the ships.
Yeah, I miss this ship so much.
Obviously, a massive place in your heart, isn't there, Antonio? I was just wondering, I think you touched on it there in terms of helping sort of the trade and the agents sort of stimulate that market and get things going. You mentioned that there will be some sort of, I suppose, incentive, probably the wrong word, but some sort of way to or offer perhaps or to ease the sales again, maybe in a few months' time. Is that where you're sort of planning ahead end of year wise?
Let's call them supporting tools. Okay, maybe that's easier. And going back to one of the questions, because I just realized I never replied to you
Okay.
regarding the elderly people, etc., etc. Of course, we are as flexible as we can. So if we need to protect a specific category of people, we will. Okay. But this is where agents and operators should be working together. So the idea is to get, those passengers, those customers back on board again. And why not as soon as possible? And again, there's lots of flexibility from us. So we're here to listen. We are engaging. Sorry, I left my Outlook open.
I did wonder what that sort of robotic noise was.
And I'm being literally bombarded. So as you can see, emails haven't stopped yet.
No, you're a busy man.
We're receiving. But all I'm saying is that, we will need to adapt ourselves. Mm. It's an ongoing thing. Again, nothing is set in stone right now. So whatever the future throws at us, we will be ready to deal with it.
We've had sorry to cut you off there, Antonio. We've had a question come in from Simon from Igloo that says, will you consider putting 2020 sailings on sale early for customers who want to rebook but already have a cruise booked for next year?
So to put summer 2020 sailings?
No, to put 2020 sailings on sale, would you consider going that far as to sort of trying to stretch out and have that capacity there for people to book now? Or
the answer is yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. Again, we still got parts of 2020, available.
Oh, sorry, 22. I beg your pardon.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you said 2020.
I did, and that makes far more sense. 22. Apologies, Simon, for that. Yes. Would you look ahead to 2022?
Yes, that's part of the plan. So, of course, it's a gradual thing. So we will definitely focus first on 2020 and 2021, but 2022 will definitely be included in the plan, because you may have people who are actually willing to book 2 years ahead. So the idea is basically to remove any constraint that is actually blocking customers from rebooking their cruises. Of course, I'll remind you that offices around the world are currently closed. So this process may take a little bit of time. That's one of our biggest offices is actually in Italy.
Of course,
and Italy has been heavily affected. So we also need to be pragmatic and, go step by step. So, but the goal is basically to have the whole of 21 and summer 22 on sale as soon as possible. So 21 already is. 22 will be released shortly. And that was definitely a good question.
And 2020 is definitely on sale, by the way, obviously. And
we haven't stopped it.
Yeah, no.
Also because it's worth remembering for those cruises, for all the cruises that we haven't cancelled, customers can easily take advantage of our cruise flexibility program. Mm-hmm. So up until 48 hours prior to departure, they have the possibility to postpone their departure date. So to postpone their cruise. So as I said, we're doing everything we can in order to give some flexibility in these very, very uncertain times.
And would you say that's sort of if you had to address the trade now sort of on Facebook, what would you sort of say was your message, basically, that you are pulling out all the stops and doing all you can? And what would you say to them who are, you're working night and day, I imagine, for them?
Yes, they are the most important people. For MSC cruises, so especially Simon, the one you just mentioned.
I butchered their question, by the way.
Simon is just one many of the travel agents that I'm regularly in contact with. Mm-hmm. But yes, they play a crucial role. I understand sometimes they might be a bit frustrated because some processes could take a little bit longer than expected. But yes, we rely on them and they rely on us. So we have their back and they have ours. So, and I have said that several times. We're in this together. So we're all on the same ship, and we need to make sure we have smooth sails ahead of us. So it's critical that we all encourage our customers, to rebook and give everyone a second chance. Because if everyone would be applying for a refund, there will be no travel industry.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's sort of customer interest, isn't it, as opposed to customer sort of value at the moment. Well, Antonio, thank you very much for joining me. Let's hopefully next time we meet, or in the near future, it'll be on board one of your ships, let alone seeing it in the background there.
That's my daydreaming at the moment. So I really hope that the next interview is going to be either somewhere nicer than my home or on board of one of our ships. But thank you very much, and I hope that everybody is keeping safe at home. So we need to save lives and protect the NHS. So stay healthy and safe, everyone out there.
And thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your comments. Feel free to get in touch with us if you have any more and stuff like that. But thank you very much for your time. And Antonio, all the best and take care.
Ciao, ciao.